I walked down the infamous street in Kolkata, India, for the first time in 2003. 10,000 women and girls standing in line, waiting for a customer to choose them from the line. Girls' faces caked with makeup and plastered smiles. It took me a while to understand what I was witnessing. The sexual exploitation of women and girls for profit. This was a business. At first, I was shocked, and then I was sad. And then I was angry. I started to work with these women in Kolkata, India, in this red light district. 10,000 women and girls, 30% underage. That's 3,000 girls aged 17 and under, with the youngest being as young as 12. This was my introduction to human trafficking in 2003. Human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to perform a sex act for the sake of profit, or to cause a minor to perform a sex act for profit. You don't actually have to be moved anywhere to be trafficked. You just need someone with a vulnerability that someone else will exploit for their own personal gain. For 2 years, I sat and listened to stories of women in Kolkata, India, in this red light district. Stories of crushed dreams, of shame, and survival. And after 2 years of listening to these stories, my friend Sarah, Lance, and I couldn't just sit and do nothing. So we started a business called Sari Bari to give women a way out. In 2005, we started with 3 women. When I left in 2008, that same company employed 30 women. And now, over 10 years later, that company employs 120 women. When I came back from India and returned to the States, I found that the same thing that was happening in India was happening right here in my own backyard. The same force, fraud, and coercion used to exploit people's vulnerabilities was right here in Jacksonville, Florida. And once again, I sat with women and I listened to their stories. And once again, I couldn't just sit and do nothing. So we started a business called Rethreaded. Rethreaded's mission is to renew hope and reignite dreams and release potential for survivors of human trafficking through business. We've created a shame-free and grace-filled community where women can be safe and reclaim their lives. Since starting in 2012, we have helped over 40 women reclaim their lives. And I love my job. I love my job. But we are doing nothing to stop human trafficking. Rethreaded could hire as many women as possible, but it will not stop human trafficking until we end demand. The current strategy to end human trafficking is to arrest traffickers, give women services, and raise awareness has been off the mark. We've been treating the underlying symptoms that are actually driving this industry, the buying of sex. And as much as I love my job, wouldn't it be great if I didn't have to have this job? What if traffickers had no one to sell to? What if the websites that made millions of dollars selling women and children were shut down? And what if all of this happened because in our cities, no one was buying human beings for sex? The exploitation of our men, women, and children will not stop until we end demand. It is basic business principles. According to the World Labor Organization, human trafficking globally brings in $99 billion a year. Web-based sex buying on Backpage.com, starting in 2004, has brought in $500 million of prostitution-related income. In a study done by Rhea House in Boston, over a 3-month period, an estimated $2.5 million of sex was bought. Human trafficking is a business, but people will not create a product if there was no one to buy it. If we end demand, we can end human trafficking. Now, most people think that human trafficking is a female issue, but we have to realize that it takes all of us, women and men, to come together to change the culture of demand in our cities. But men, I have some bad news for you. 99% of customers are men. Men are driving in an industry of exploitation. And men are driving an industry that exploits vulnerabilities. But this is what I believe, and this is what I know. That a man's journey to buying sex is broken. And a woman's journey to being sold is broken. I was talking to one of our employees at Rethreaded, who's a survivor of human trafficking, and I asked her the question, how can we stop men from buying sex? She gets really quiet and looks at me and says, Kristin, it's like the brokenness of my addiction and exploitation would meet a man's brokenness of loneliness. And after our interaction, we both got nothing we wanted and both left worse off. And stats prove this woman's experience. Men are buying sex for a need for power, to avoid intimacy and loneliness. In a study done by demand abolitionists of sex buyers, 64% of men wanted to stop what they were doing. And it is so easy for us to shame men. It's so easy for us to be angry. But what I have learned is that shame heals no one. It does not heal the survivors of human trafficking. It does not heal or stop a man from buying sex. So what does? There are countries around the world who are stopping human trafficking by addressing the issue of demand. One of the most successful models has been the Nordic model, which Sweden adopted in 1999. The Nordic model has 3 components. Number 1, stop arresting women for prostitution. Number 2, instead of arresting, offer women services so they have a chance to reclaim their lives. The third part is start arresting sex buyers. This creates a deterrent for men and holds them accountable for driving an industry of exploitation. And guess what? This is working. According to a study by the Nordic Gender Institute, over the past 15 years, Sweden has reduced demand in their country by half. And other countries are starting to follow in the footsteps of Sweden, including Norway, Ireland, France, and Canada. In our own country, over 900 cities have started to address the issue of demand, whether it be the Nordic model or a version of the Nordic model. In Seattle, they've taken things a step further. After men are arrested, they take a course that was created by the Organization for Prostitution Survivors called Ending Sexual Exploitation, a Course for Men. This is a 10-week course, and 3 of the instructors are previous sex buyers. These are men who were once driving the industry and have now been healed and are going back to stop it. So what will we do? Now that you've heard this, you have to be just like me. You can't just sit here and do nothing. We have to continue to support organizations who give women a chance to reclaim their lives. But we have to start having the difficult and uncomfortable conversation about demand. Will we start to address this issue with accountability and compassion? Will we come together, women and men, to end this? And you all know I love my job, but please put me out of this job.